A lot of times I feel there is no way out. I feel helpless and completely demoralized. There is no hope, that this is it, and there is nothing I can do to alleviate suffering. It makes me tired and not enthusiastic about anything in life. I have no purpose. I know that there is a lot of good in my life and a lot of bad too, but there is nothing that gives me any motivation to do anything. I've tried to see where I feel this in my body, and I see it, but so what? Depression just stands constantly and there is nothing I can do. Is there really no way out? Hey Praveen. Thanks for your question. I feel like you're being a lot more honest than in previous questions and previous times that we've talked, and I see that as a good thing, that you're being more honest and speaking more from what your body is saying rather than what your mind is saying. I do actually think this is the mind as well, but I think that you've said it to yourself so many times on an unconscious level that it's become a bodily contraction in the solar plexus. So this is the hardest part. And in one way, it's totally up to you whether you listen to me, and in another way, it's God's will. Isn't that bizarre that I say that? It's both and neither. But you have to see that that's absolutely not true. Even though you're having the feelings and thoughts of it, seeing that it's not true, that's an energy and a thought system that's coming up. It's like putting a filter on a light. So you put on a blue filter on the light, and it's seeing that you aren't that blue filter. Who you are is the consciousness that's behind that. But at the moment it's so uncomfortable for you, your consciousness and that feeling become one and the same thing. So you believe you're depressed, you believe you're stuck, that you're helpless. So there's no detachment from it. You can't see that helplessness is arising, that depression is arising, that no motivation is arising. You're absolutely identified with it. So it's seeing that it's not true, it's just a feeling, and at the moment that feeling feels like it's really real, and you feel like you're always like that and you're stuck like that, and that isn't true. So the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree for 40 days and 40 nights. A Maya illusion presented itself through heaven and hell. And I can assure you that this, what you're describing, was presented as the Buddha's hell, this hopelessness, that life is pointless. But the Buddha sat through it and saw that it wasn't true. It's not really that the Buddha sat through it, it's that the Buddha recognized that that wasn't who the Buddha was, or who Gautama was. That's not who you are. That's not who you are. And I would just commit yourself to coming out of that. If it's really bad and you're really having very depressive thoughts, then you could go and you can get some medication from the doctor. I'm not recommending that, like you have to go and speak to the doctor, but the reason that I say that is there's no shame in that. And I think spiritual people sometimes have a superior idea, and I think that medication on the short term can be helpful, because your brain stops producing serotonin and then you kind of fall into a hole, and then it helps the brain reproduce it again, but not in the long term. I think in the long term it just becomes another mechanism to shut you down. But in the short term, if it's really bad, these sorts of things can help your body start kick into functioning again. There's like a biological thing that when you've had a certain amount of depression, your brain stops producing, I think, serotonin, and yeah, but I'm not a doctor and you should go and speak to someone, but I just want to say that, as in, if it's really, really bad, the depression, there is that option. But also there is meditation retreats you can go on. You could do Osho meditation. The Osho retreats, there's so much that you can do, exercise, eating differently, to help pick you out of this energy. So that's on the human level. But when you say there's no hope, I assume that you're talking about Neo-Advaita, the way that certain teachers say there is no hope. It's hopeless for the person. And that's not talking in the same context as depression. So if you're saying there's no hope in context of depression, you're totally misunderstanding what they're saying. That what they're saying is there's no hope of the person becoming enlightened. Like it's hopeless for the person can't make this happen. Which is true, because firstly, the person doesn't exist. Secondly, who is that it going to happen to? And thirdly, it's beyond the person. But it doesn't mean within the dream that you can't tidy up the cage, that you can't make things better for you in the realm of you. You can make things better. If you feel really depressed, you can come out to, like, not all identified people are really depressed. You can come to a more balanced and more happy place. And it's more than likely that you'll hear some people really, really suffer prior to energetic shifts. So in some stories, they go into deep suffering and then there's a shift. But for some people, the way it is, they become more and more balanced. And as they become more balanced, then they can hear that this is it. You know, when you're really suffering, you're like, oh, fuck off. When someone says this is it, fuck it. But as you become more balanced on the human level, there's like more space for it to be heard. The person isn't seeking so hard. And the person's really suffering, it's just so shut down, it can't hear, it can't be heard. It's like taking the whole center stage. Yeah. This is where Neo-Advaita can be very dangerous for depressive people and depressed people. It's part of the reason I think that I began to veer away from speaking too much about Neo-Advaita. I think it's really beautiful and I love it. I think it's such a beautiful message, but I think that most people misunderstand it. Well, of course people misunderstand it, because it's not a personal thing. So when the person grabs hold of it, that the person then tries to put it in, that there's no hope for me, I'm really depressed, or I'm dying, I'm really ill, or I'm really hurting, and there's no hope for me, it's hopeless, I can't do anything. And that's really not true. That's really bastardizing the subject. It's almost like the person that is depressed wants to beat themselves up with something, so they use that. But thank you for your question.